Hello everyone and welcome back to Red Alt Key. In the last video, which I'll link to in the description, I installed kali-linux as a Docker container inside of Ubuntu Linux. However, in the video, the process starts at about 55%, so you never get to see how it all began. In this video, we will install a kali-linux container and run it on Ubuntu Linux. Let's dive in. Docker is already installed on this Ubuntu Desktop. Just run Docker and there it is, it's running. So to get started, we will have to download the kali-linux image and then run it as a container on this machine. The command we will use to download the image is docker pull. What this does is it pulls the Kali rolling edition of Kali from the kali-linux account on the docker.io image repository. So I'll press enter. Now it's downloading the latest version of Kali rolling and it's now downloaded. Just to confirm that it is there, we'll run docker image ls. There's a typo. There it is, Kali rolling latest. Let's run it. There it is. We are now in kali-linux. We are running Kali rolling version 2023.3. You can tell that it's a Docker image because the host name, which is the part after the @ sign, it has this alphanumeric name. That's actually the host name or the name of the machine or server that we're running. So if I run host name, that's what we get, cddcad82ff4. And then if we exit from here, we go back to Ubuntu. So if I run host name, that's the name of the Ubuntu machine that we're on. And then to go back to kali-linux, there it is. Before I install the kali-linux packages that I was installing in the previous video, I'll illustrate that there are two ways to run containers. The first method is running the container once, and if we exit the container also gets destroyed or shuts down. In this instance here, you'll notice that in the window to the right, I have run kali-linux using the docker run-it command, which is running the kali-linux container interactively. So on the left hand window, if I run a docker ps command, docker ps will show us all the running containers. So if I type in docker ps now, you'll notice that the kali-linux container is running, and you'll note too that the container ID here shows up as D7D25B12E377. And then if we look out to the right here and we type in host name, we get the same name. So if I exit here and then go back here and run docker ps, it's not running anymore. I'll clear the window so you can see docker ps, there is no docker image running, there is no kali-linux running. And then on the window on the right, if I run kali-linux again, notice that the number changes. The host name has changed. It's because the last time I ran kali-linux and then exited from it, the container was completely destroyed. I keep using these two words, image and container interchangeably. An image is the instructions to build a container, and I downloaded these from the docker.io website. However, a container is the machine or instance of the image that you run. Think of image as instructions, think of container as application or implementation that is actually running. The reason why the host name has changed is because it's a new container. Let me prove that even further for you. So on the window on the right, if I run the ls command, you'll notice that there are these folders here. I'm going to create a new, let me create a new folder and I'll call it ABCD. ABCD, and then I'll run ls, and ABCD is right there at the. Okay, we have created a new folder called ABCD. Then we'll exit from this container, and then we'll go back and run the same command to run a Kali-Linux container interactively. There it is, and you'll notice the host name has changed again. Let's run ls. The folder ABCD is gone. Why? Because each time you run a container, each time you run an image interactively to create a container, it creates a new container with a new host name, and it does not retain any changes that you made previously. The next step is to install the rest of the Kali-Linux packages, but in order for that to work, the Docker container has to run as a service, meaning that it has to continue running. As you noticed, if I run this, docker run -it kali-linux kali rolling, it runs the container. But if I exit and run docker ps, the container is not running. Every time you exit from a container that has been created using docker run -it, every time you exit from it, all the changes you've made to it will be deleted, including the container itself. First off, we need to be able to run the container such that it doesn't get deleted when we exit from it. So we have to run it as a service. And for that, we are going to make slight changes to our previous command, and we'll add a /d, which causes it to run as a background service. So if I press enter, the newly created Kali-Linux container has been running for about 8 minutes. What we'll do now is execute commands in that container, and you'll notice that this time any changes that we make are retained. We're going to use the docker exec command to do that. So I'll first copy the container ID, because that's what we will use to address this specific container. So it's docker exec -it, then paste the container ID, and we have to specify the protocol that we will use to communicate with this container. So the command line language that we will use is called bash. By typing this at the end, we have instructed Docker to communicate with this container using bash. Press enter, and we are now in our shell. I'll type in ls to list the items that are in this directory. is those folders, and I'll type pwd to show us where we are. So we are in the root, we are at the base of the drive. Next thing that we'll do is we'll change something and see if it gets retained even after we exit from the container. We'll create a directory called abcde. Enter. Then we'll list the contents of this folder. abcde is right there at the beginning. Now let's exit from this container. We are now back on the Ubuntu Desktop. Let's go back into, well, before we go back, let's check by running docker ps. The container is still there. It's been running for 11 minutes now. Let's go back into it. ls. Our folder is still there. Okay, we don't need this. rmdir, which means remove directory, is gone. The next stage, which is what I was working on in the previous video, is to install the default kali-linux tools. This image is very small and it has base tools, but you have two options. You can install the tools that come with kali-linux, which would be the default image for kali-linux, or you can install everything that comes with kali-linux. The only exception here is that the graphic user interface of kali-linux will not be installed. It's just the command line accessible features. We're now going to install the kali-linux packages, and we will use apt to install them. Okay, so we're using apt to first check for updates, and then using apt again to install the kali-linux-headless packages. I'll press enter, and now it starts. I'll try not to speed this up as much as I can, so you can at least share in the experience. It's downloading the links to the packages that it will need to install, and then at the end it will install these packages. So you'll notice the beginning of the lines start with get, is querying a whole list of packages that it will install. And if you look at the extreme right hand side of these lines, these are the package names here: Ruby, BusyBox, Python, zip, I saw curl there, GCC, image library, Oracle, something, back to other Python packages. Linux is built on Python as well, so you might notice a package or version of Python already installed on there. Don't remove it if you feel you don't need it, because it's part of Linux. Okay, says 2 minutes to go. 1 minute and 58 seconds to go. Back to 6 minutes. Okay, let me speed things up. Okay, progress is now at 4%. It's still going. It's now installing the packages. As you can see that the beginning of the lines start with preparing and then unpacking. So the packages are now they've been downloaded, they're now being installed. I'll speed things up again. I'll stop here at 20%. This was just my way of showing you the beginning of the last video. So if we wait this out, it then takes us to 55%, at which point that's where my other video starts. To those that haven't seen the other video, it's fine, you can watch this one first and then watch the other one next. I will include a link to it to the description and also probably include it somewhere up there. You should probably see it listed at the top of your screen so you can click on it, but watch this one first and then jump on to watch the other one. The objective was to install kali-linux, the command line version of it. So the objective was to install the command line version of kali-linux as a Docker container inside of Ubuntu Desktop. And as you can see, this is my Ubuntu Desktop. Thank you for visiting Red Alt Key. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and also comment. Please let me know how useful this video was to you. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Till then.